we had a recent study that showed 138 people were killed in more than 2,300 crashes involving parked trucks. So it is a concern, and for both the traveling public and the truck drivers. And so having those safe places to park is just huge to make sure everyone is safe on our roads.
The Texas Department of Transportation held a ribbon cutting ceremony for a pair of these new safety rest areas, and this is on Interstate 10 near Van Horn.
Mhm.
Can you describe for us what these rest areas contain, what amenities they offer, and how much truck parking specifically?
Yeah, so these safety rest areas are really a great resource for the public, right? They're on the side of the roads along a lot of our major corridors, and they really help out a lot of truck parking, but also the public. They're kind of a great place to recharge, relax. They got bathrooms, they got all kinds of great places to just reset when you're on our summer road trip or whatever you're doing. This Culberson County Safety Rest Area in Van Horn has a lobby space with exhibits, two sets of large restrooms, a family restroom, a picnic arbors, playground, vending machines, walking trail, all kinds of great amenities to help you relax and reset for that summer road trip, right? So you can just park there and just go to the bathroom, relax, have fun with your kids in the park, maybe even have lunch, do whatever you need to do to just reset for the rest of your travel. It has 58 truck parking spaces, including 4 ADA bus truck unloading spaces, and then 28 car parking spaces. So this is really for both truck drivers and drivers throughout the state, just going along the interstates, going along the highways, and to just to reset, as I said, because it's easy to get tired on your trip, right? Your eyes might start drooping. It's 1 in the afternoon and you just had lunch and you're just feeling tired. So you just need that place, that safe place to just sit there and park and let the kids get out of the car and just relax. And we've all been there, and these are really, really nice places to just kind of relax and reset, like I said.
Okay. One of the big concerns that a lot of truckers have with parking these days is security. Do
Yeah.
the new sites have some kind of security feature?
Yes, they do. So the rest area has surveillance cameras, it has lighting, and then maintenance staff on site 24/7, 365. So, we have folks out there watching this. We're monitoring the surveillance system, monitors the parking areas, the entryways to the buildings, the building lobbies, and the vending area. So, and then I know there's lighting in these safety rest areas as well. So we really want to make sure we have those safe places to park for truck drivers. I know that is a big concern for truck drivers, and making sure they can relax and get the sleep that they need to get on the road, and fulfill their hours. So that is a big priority for us to have that kind of safe place for truck drivers and the traveling public as well.
Several years ago, I spoke with someone down there at the Texas DOT, and the DOT was in the midst of a significant increase in rest area truck parking. There's a program that was going on at that time. Is this part of a continuation of that program, or is this something additional or new?
Yeah, essentially. So we have a 2020 truck parking study, right? And this looked at truck parking availability throughout the entire state. There's a really, really good, and I can send you the link to it. There's a really, really good kind of breakdown of that entire study. And it was just kind of looking at what we have, what's available, and what the need is, and then why we need these extra truck parking spaces. So after that study, we had that, and then looking at that, this safety rest area, the original design included 28 truck parking spaces, and it was then increased to 58 truck parking spaces per that. So, we want to make sure we get as much truck parking availability as we can. And this is definitely one strategy to do that, is to have our, TxDOT safety rest areas. Another strategy is to have the private sector fill in, all kinds of private sector truck stops along the routes. So it's kind of a collaboration between the private sector and TxDOT in building these safe truck parking spaces.
You mentioned in relationship to that 2020 study that you looked at the why. Why does Texas need this additional truck parking? What was the conclusion of the study in that area?
Yeah, there's multiple reasons, right? And first off is safety. safety is paramount at TxDOT. It's our top priority for everyone. And having available safe truck parking spaces helps keep both truck drivers and the traveling public safe. Truck drivers, whenever they're getting to that end of that hours where they need to find a place to park, they will either, keep going past that time and maybe be driving a little bit longer than they should be, and they might get a little tired and a little sleepy, um, or they will park illegally. And so that might be in the shoulder off a highway, that might be a shoulder off an exit, and that can lead to crashes. And so, we had a recent study that showed 138 people were killed in more than 2,300 crashes involving parked trucks. So it is a concern, and for both the traveling public and the truck drivers. And so having those safe places to park is just huge to make sure everyone is safe on our roads. Because we want to make sure they can have that reliable place throughout where they're going. But it's also a big part of it is supporting the freight network, right? So trucking is a huge part of the freight industry in Texas, and we want to help support that. We have a growing population, a growing economy, growing demand for goods and services throughout the entire state, and trucking is a huge part of that. And we want to make sure that that we can support that as much as we can. And truck parking is a big part of that, because truck drivers, if you see a safety rest area, a truck stop, or anything like that, and it might be an hour or two before your time is up for the day, you might park there a little bit early, right? You might park there, and then that kind of loses wages, that loses time that you could be maximizing to help bring the goods and services where they need to be going, and also maximizing the wages for the truck drivers themselves. So having those reliable spots throughout the route, and that you're going to have a parking space throughout your route, and it's going to be one an hour ahead from you, can help you maximize your time for both the freight industry and the truck drivers themselves to maximize those wages. So that's a big part of it as well.
I'm wondering, Texas obviously is a very large state with an extensive highway network. So there's a lot of places you could put these rest areas. How does the state choose where to expand rest area truck parking or add rest areas? What's the criteria?
Yeah, so the first metric we look at is crashes and fatalities. So if you look at fatigue-related crashes, fatalities, and you can kind of see where those are spaced on the highways, you can say, hey, there's been a lot of these kinds of crashes in this area on this section of the highway. Let's see if we can put a safety rest area there. So that's kind of first and foremost. As I said before, safety is our top priority at TxDOT. So that's a big factor. So we review that crash data continually to see if we can find those problem areas. Some other metrics include annual average daily traffic. So just however many people are on a certain section of the highway. If there's a bunch of people right there, and you see that there's not parking availability, then you might see if we can add a safety rest area right there. You're also looking at distance to and from large cities, and then also the age of existing facilities and truck parking needed. So you look at what's available now, what is out there right now, and see if you might need to see a new safety rest area in a certain spot.
I know you may not have these figures just handy right now, but I'm wondering if you have an idea of how much or how many total truck parking spaces the state has in its rest areas, and how that compares with what the state thinks is needed in terms of truck parking.
Yeah, so that we looked into that not truck parking study, and had a huge, long and study and looking into that, and it's really has a lot of great information from that, and very important, and really glad we did that. And uh, a lot of it is, like I said, private sector and public. So this back from that study, which again was published in 2020, so it might be updated from then, but Texas has more than 27,000 truck parking spaces, and that's at 650 privately and publicly owned truck parking locations. Um, And then, so the private sector does a huge portion of that, right? That's 90% of the truck parking availability throughout the entire state is the private sector. So that's a huge aspect of this. The state can't provide all of those truck parking spaces, so we want to collaborate with the private sector for that. And so that the private sector has about 25,000 truck parking spaces. The demand is going to be increasing. I see if I can find that number right here in my notes. Yes. Okay. So according to the study, the peak demand was around 25,000 truck parking spaces. But by 2050, the projected need is 46,000 truck parking spaces. So, like I said, we have a growing economy, growing population, growing freight industry. So more and more truck parking spaces are needed to help support that industry. And so that's why this is really important to expand what we can throughout the state.
And that sounds like a significant gap from 27,000 to 46,000. Uh, Obviously a long way to go, but a lot of progress made. Are there particular parts of the state right now that could be considered underserved in terms of truck parking?
There could be spaces, we really focus on the interstates, right? And where the most people are traveling. And, we're continually looking at that traffic demand and the traffic throughout the state. And so that's why we focus on some of those safety rest areas on those large corridors, I-10, I-35, I-45. As more and more people move to Texas, as the different industries grow and different cities grow, you might see more of a traffic demand in those other kind of rural highways or anything like that. Those areas, as that demand increases, as the traffic increases in some areas, you might see a little bit less availability because that has changing and that demand has grown. But that's why we really focus and continually look at the traffic demand throughout the state, throughout these highways, to make sure we can address those problem areas, to address those areas that need more spaces. So I would say more rural highways might have a little bit less availability because there's less demand there. But as that demand grows, we're going to increase those truck parking spaces as we can.
Um, does the state have an idea or the DOT have an idea what the next project might be in terms of adding truck parking? I know you've obviously just finished this thing in Van Horn, but do you know where you're going next?
So yeah, we have a few safety rest areas planned. So we have one safety rest area in Hudspeth County near Fort Hancock on I-10, and in Nolan County near Sweetwater on I-20. So, those are two interstate safety rest areas. That's most of the traffic. We want to find those gaps. And so those were some gaps that they wanted to build those safety rest areas. We're also designing a new safety rest area in Montague County near Sunset on US 281. So there's all kinds of more projects plans from TxDOT, but the private sector is also building more and more of these as demand increases. So we're looking at innovative technologies to help with truck parking as well. We have something that we're hoping to roll out later this year that will um, kind of have a smart design system to help tell truck drivers that there's truck parking spaces available and how many available in the roads ahead. So we're really, really focusing on this at TxDOT and making sure that we can support the trucking industry.
Just a couple of other things I did want to ask you about. Um, One of them that's a big concern for truckers is that some states have time limits in terms of how long trucks can stay parked at those rest areas.
Sure.
What is the situation in Texas?
So for our safety rest areas, according to our Texas Transportation Code, there's a maximum of 24 hours to stay parked at the safety rest area.
So nothing that would be under the 10 hours of required rest truckers have to get.
Correct. 24 hours, you can stay there for up to that entire period to rest, and that should be plenty of time to get back on the road.
Okay. Have you heard back from truckers regarding these previous expansions of truck parking? And if so, what sort of reaction did you get?
Yeah, I can't speak for the truck drivers themselves, but I do know we work very closely with the trucking industry. We want to make sure that we're supporting them. As I said, they're a huge part of the freight network, and we want to support that as much as we can. So I know safety is very, very important for truck drivers, and helping them have a safe place to park, because no one wants to sit there and go to sleep on the side of a highway in a dark interstate. So, we want to make sure that they have that reliable, safe place to park. And, that's something that truck drivers want. That's something that we want. And that's something the public wants as well. They want to make sure that if they don't possibly have that potential crash on a parked truck on the side of the road. You want to give them that place where they can sleep, relax, and then get back on the road.